Dear students, hope you are all fine. Today I am sharing another video lecture with you, lecture number 13, and the topic of this lecture is interviews and their types. In this lecture, I will try to cover definition of interview, categorizing interviews, and different types of interviews. At the end of this lecture, you will be able to know about interview skills in detail. You will also be able to know about different types of interviews. First of all, I will talk about interview. The word interview means view between or side between. It suggests a meeting between two persons for the purpose of getting a view of each other or for knowing each other. We can say that it is the interaction between an interviewer and an interviewee. An interview is a means of two-way communication. If we formally define interview, an interview is a formal meeting in which a person or persons question, consult, or evaluate another person or persons. The person who asks the questions is called the interviewer, and the person who replies is the interviewee or the candidate. Both of them have specific objectives. Informally, when at any time two people meet to discuss a particular matter, they are participating in an interview. Thus, from the time you apply for your first job until the day you retire, you will be involved in a wide variety of interviews. No other communication activity is more dependent on communication skills rather than interviews. Now I will tell you how to categorize interviews. Interviews are classified according to the purpose for which they are held. Not all interviews are the same. All require different skills on the part of the interviewer. I have classified them on the following basis. Interviews dominated by exchange of information and interviews geared towards the exchange of feelings. Now I will talk about different types of interviews. There are several types of interviews like employment interviews, exit interviews, informative interviews, persuasive interviews, stress interviews, assessment interviews. Now in coming slides, I will discuss all these types of interviews one by one. So the first type of interview is employment interviews. This is the most common and well understood interview. In fact, from the word interview, most people relate it to job seeking or selection interviews. The job candidate wants to learn more about the position and the organization. The employer wants to learn more about the applicant's abilities, attitudes, and experience. Both hope to make a good impression and impact. This interview is the basis for important decision for both parties. The interviewer has to decide whether the candidate will benefit the organization and if he will be the right person for the job. The candidate also has to decide whether the job and organization will fulfill his personal expectations or not. The interviewer can be a single person or more than one person. Normally, a panel of interviewers is involved. It can be composed of departmental heads and other experts along with representatives of the management. These interviews can be advertised through the media, for example, newspapers, magazines, or conducted at campus venues for freshers, candidates who are just passing out of their final year. The second type of interview is exec interviews. An exec interview is given to a person who has resigned from an organization. The organization wants to know why the employee has resigned from the post. This is more to get a feedback. The interviewer's role is to try to understand why the interviewer is leaving the organization. A departing employee can often provide invaluable feedback to the organization. They can give their impression about how the enterprise is being handled and where things could be improved. An employee who is leaving has no fear of the boss' displeasure and is likely to express his feelings about the policies, rules, and regulations, interdepartmental relations, etc. quite freely. The interviewer tends to ask all the questions while the departing employee provides all the answers. The focus of the interview should be organizational process, rather than personal problems. All the statements, for example, provident funds, salary check details, insurance, are clarified at this stage. If the exit interview is tactfully handled, it can be a great asset to the organization. They can get information about how the company is actually functioning. Things may be something on paper and different in actual practice. All the knowledge can be gathered during the exit interview, and this knowledge which is gathered during exit interviews, they are helpful for the betterment of the organization. The third important type of interview is informative interviews. In informative interviews, the interviewer seeks facts that are important to basic understanding of events. Information mainly flows in one direction. The interviewer keeps asking a set of questions and clarifies his doubts. He listens intently to the interviewee's answers. This is done with predetermined purpose. Content listening as well as critical listenings are important for this kind of interview. For example, if a manager has told his subordinate to call information for a particular site survey, he will listen intently to the report so that he can take an appropriate decision for setting up the project and can decide on the site. So informative interviews are also very important to gather information before doing something. Another important kind of interview is persuasive interview. As we know that persuasion means to make someone agree. These are very common when salesmen perform individual selling or in industrial marketing. The persuader, who is interviewer, discusses the potential customer's needs and shows how the product or concept can fulfill those needs. For example, a salesman selling a water purifier will discuss about the customer's need for drinking pure water. Then he will try to fulfill the need by explaining about the water purifier and how it cleans and purifies drinking water. Thus, persuasive interviews are a platform for using talking skills, listening skills, and the ability of people to impart relevant information. Another important kind of interview is stress interviews. As the name suggests, a stress interview puts the candidate into stressful, difficult situations in order to test his or her reactions to some stress. This interview is mostly used while selecting people for jobs which are highly stressful. The objective is to find out whether they will be able to cope up with different situations in a balanced way or not. A stress interview tests qualities such as courage, tact, cool temper, and self command, which are needed when confrontations occur or business is not so good. Several methods are employed to throw the candidate off balance. Questions are asked by different people together, cross questioning and confusion is created, arguing takes place, rapid fire questioning on different topics takes place, answers are ridiculed, the candidates are subjected to silence and inattention. Only cool headed and self possessed candidates pass this test. Also, only qualified people can conduct this kind of interview. The last kind of interview is assessment interview. This type of an interview is more for discussion. The focus is on the career development of the employee, his shortcomings, areas which need improvement, training needs, opportunities for promotion, etc. The immediate boss who knows the employee well normally does this kind of interview. And this kind of interview is always also important because it helps in promotion or termination of the employee. So dear students, this was all about interview and different types of interview. I hope that you have got the concept. Thank you.